even if you have something that happens to you, maybe you won't recover all the way, but you don't have to let it stop you either.
Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to Building Great Sales Teams. I really thought I had interviewed every person from every trade imaginable, but I was wrong. I was wrong because after speaking at Clipicon, I met an individual, Tim Crouch, and Tim is the owner of Gutter Growth Mastermind and the Gutter Summit coming up here in a couple of months. Tim, welcome to the show, brother.
What's going on, man? How you doing today?
Pretty good. And so Tim is an expert in seamless gutters, business, and marketing. He sold his company roughly a year ago, and we're going to have him on the show today to talk all things gutters, all things business, and all things marketing. I did want to ask you, though, Tim, I was perusing your social media a little bit, and I saw the story about your paralyzed arm, and you were referencing some Bible scripture and stuff. So I really wanted to share, I wanted to ask you if you could share that story with our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was 13 years old and I was trying to fit in with like other kids and stuff. I was going to go into high school. I think I was going to the 9th grade. And I got into a gang initiation, which I didn't end up participating in it. But through that initiation, I paralyzed my arm. And that was on New Year's Eve. It was actually the 1999. It was New Year's Eve. It was turning year 2000. So like at midnight, when it was turning the year 2000, I don't know if you remember back then, but they thought all the
Y2K.
Off.
Yeah.
So actually, they had to trauma hawk me. I went to one hospital and they couldn't handle the situation because my arm was turning black because I had no blood flow going through it. So it was like literally dying, and it was just kind of over their head. So they trauma hawked me to another hospital. And they actually had to pause the helicopter for like 15 minutes because it was right at midnight. They were worried that the computers are going to shut down, and they were worried about guns being shot in the air. Mm-hmm. So it kind of, basically, so they trauma hawked me, and the doctor told me I was completely paralyzed. So I wasn't going to get any use back. They did end up saving it. They got the blood flowing going. But they did I don't even know the name of the test that they did, but they showed that there was no nerve activity. And so I'm like maybe in the hospital for a week at that time. I was there for a few weeks, but it was like at the week mark, and they wanted to do this surgery, and they were going to cut my arm open and do something to the nerves. I'm not really sure what they were going to do, but I had a 6-month window to get it done. Mm-hmm. And I just, I was 13 years old. I played baseball for like 7-8 years prior to that. And in my mind, it was just like, when am I playing baseball again? And I'm in the hospital, and I just really didn't want this surgery. I mean, I don't think I had a real grasp at 13, like the severity of it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know that it even registered that my arm was paralyzed for good, even though they were saying that. And all I cared about was not getting that surgery for some reason. So I'm in the hospital, and I'm opening up the Bible, and the first thing it opens up, it says, ask believing in faith and you'll receive. So I'm like, God, I don't want this surgery. I need some nerve activity, because I asked the doctor earlier, how can I not get the surgery?
Right.
And the doctor was like, well, you have to have nerve activity to not get it. That's the reason why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. And so, I prayed that night. My surgery is scheduled for 6 a.m. in the morning the following day. And I prayed, God, I just want some nerve activity. And so the following day, this was my left hand, I had like a twitch. It was so small you couldn't even see it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I have nerve activity. I don't want that surgery. And honestly, I don't know how a 13-year-old at the time was able to call off the surgery, but I called it off. I don't know how that happened. But I didn't get the surgery. And at that point, just that little twitch, I knew I was going to get my arm back.
Yeah.
So just like, I don't know. I mean, if I didn't think that I was going to get my arm back, I just wouldn't have never tried. And it took me years. It took me like 3 or 4 years to be completely rehabilitated. And even
Hmm.
today, I don't really have the feeling in it anymore. I have a feeling, but it's a completely different feeling from my right hand,
Wow.
just like a numb feeling. But I got all the use back, and it was a lot of hard work. My arm got stuck in like an L position from
Hmm.
I had like a, what do you call it? Not a splint, a sling.
Yeah.
So from having the sling on, my arm's like stuck in an L position, and they told me I would never straighten my arm again. So like the first thing I had to do, and the same thing happened to my hands. My hand kind of clenched up.
Hmm.
So it was just a whole process, just getting my arm straight again. And I used to lay on my back, and those weights that you put on your legs,
Yeah.
um, like if you're running.
Hmm.
I took those weights and I would like strap it around my wrist, and I would lay on my back so my arm was flat, and it would just pull it down. And it took 6, 8 months just to get my arm straight and to get my fingers straightened again, let alone use them.
Wow.
And then slowly, it's just I was doing physical therapy twice a week. If I only did it twice a week with the therapist, I wouldn't have got my arm back. So what I did was I just kind of learned from her, and I
Hmm.
started doing it every day, like 10 times a day. Like I was just obsessed with getting my arm back. So every single day I was, doing all these things. And so eventually it got to the point to where I could hold like a 2 pound dumbbell.
Hmm.
And then I found myself getting into the gym, and I'm just trying to catch up. It's like this arm, like finally clench my hand and hold
Right.
something.
Right.
And so I'm struggling with a 2 pound dumbbell, like struggling. So it took about a year just to catch up to my right side to where they're kind of about even.
Hmm.
And then I was just, then I'm in the gym now, and I'm getting caught up, and I had a point to prove. And 4 years later, I was bench pressing 375.
Wow. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? It was like the doctors just told you couldn't do it, and that's all you needed. That was your motivation.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, bro, sometimes I wish like that's still with me. Like it's
Hmm.
gotten me, the fact that I've overcame that has helped me overcome a lot of things.
Made a
But
lot
I
of
don't
things
know if
seem
I've
easy.
ever had the faith that I had back then. And it's kind of like, how did I even have that? It kind of blows my mind sometimes
Yeah.
because I was 13. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, the faith of a child is so much different,
Yeah.
because you haven't been beaten down by life yet. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, and some people have by that age, like their faith is gone, right? But
Hmm.
for you to come back from that is pretty amazing. And then against, I always find stories like that interesting because it's against, you know, what, an 8-year degree, medical diagnosis, and I'm sure you didn't just see one doctor. I'm sure this was multiple
I had
medical
like a dozen.
professionals telling you this, and yet you were still able to come back from that. But I think their experience isn't about the 1%, it's with the 99, you know? And so they're going to assume everybody they come across is the 99%, not the 1%, you know, that will actually put in that extra work outside of therapy. I think that was the pivotal decision you made, is like, I'm not just going to rely on other people to get my arm back.
And they were
And
probably right, because I've tried to find someone with the same situation. I've looked
Mhm.
for a long time.
Yeah.
I think I found one person that had a paralyzation. They got paralyzed from like the waist down.
Hmm.
They started walking again, and like that's the only guy I could find.
Yeah.
And I used to think that like maybe I could help people that were in that situation. And
Mhm.
I've reached out to a couple people that had a paralyzed arm or something, but they didn't really want to hear from me. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Well,
Because it didn't work for them.
at some point they accepted it, you know,
Hmm.
and you know, we can pontificate what the difference is between you and them all day long, but the fact is it was just mindset and faith at that point, you know. And you had the inspiration from scripture, which I think is huge, which is why I wanted to tell you that story, or why I wanted you to tell that story, because I just think it's fantastic. And it is like so many other entrepreneurs I've met and people with these amazing stories have overcome something that was life altering or life threatening, you know. And that kind of gave them the grit they needed to be an entrepreneur before they
Yeah.
even knew it. Developing that mindset, of being able to overcome something like that. I mean, that's what entrepreneur is at all different levels.
I mean, even the process, like when I was rehabilitating it.
Mhm.
So I started working at 13 for my grandfather
Mhm.
in a seafood restaurant. I started off bussing tables, and then I became an oyster shucker. I liked the oyster shucking because it made more money. He had like a bar set up to where the oyster shucker was behind the bar, so you could actually see, you know, the customers at the bar could see you opening them up fresh, right in front of them.
Yeah.
And that crushed me that I couldn't work anymore. Because it wasn't just the baseball; it also affected my job.
Yeah.
But maybe like 3 months into it, I started, bussing tables because I could do that. Or not
Yeah.
bussing tables. I'm sorry, hosting. I was hosting.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Getting
Yeah.
people. And I had this splint like on my hand. It was like just a splint from here to here. Just kind of helped
Hmm.
keep my hand stable.
Hmm.
And I kept going over, I'd say maybe maybe like 8 months. I don't have a clear memory on it, but maybe it was like 8 months after paralyzing my arm.
Yeah.
My hand was still completely paralyzed. But I wanted to shuck oysters. And so I learned how to shuck them with one hand.
Hmm.
And at first, my grandfather was like, I'm like, Grandpa, I could shuck oysters now. You need to let me get back. He's like, you can't shuck oysters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can. Watch me.
Yeah.
So then
Exactly.
I started showing him that I could. So he let me get back there, and I was known as like the one-handed shucker. I
Hmm.
started getting known for that. But I ended up being the fastest shucker in the restaurant out of everybody, even though I was the one with one hand.
Yeah.
So like even if you have something that happens to you, maybe you won't recover all the way, but you don't have to let it stop you either.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's kind of crazy how these things from our childhood kind of set us up for success in entrepreneurship. But then as you get further into it, you start to realize like, hey, I can't operate that way forever.
Right.
Having an enemy or having a doubt to overcome, can be detrimental at some point when business is going well. Because then all of a
Hmm.
sudden you're like self-sabotaging just so you can put yourself against a corner. I know I did that for a long
That's
time in
true.
my late 20s. It was like what got me there didn't keep me scaling. You know what I'm saying? Because I had
Yeah.
to like have something go wrong to really fight. And so it's an interesting concept for sure. Okay, so I guess walk me through how long after, you know, you got the ability to use your arm back. How long after did you start your business? Because you said you had been in business for like 20 years before you sold it, right?
Yeah. I wasn't in business for the whole 20 years as far as gutters go, but I would say,
Mhm.
as far as my own business, I was in it for maybe 15 years on my own. After kind of getting
Okay.
my arm back, and I was at the point I'm benching 375 now. At that point, I'm like 18 years old,
Hmm.
so I became a personal
Yeah.
trainer, and I was a personal trainer for about a year. That was my own business, and during that time, I had a client that was a gutter guy, and the gym I was at, I paid him like rent. So I could, it was my own business, and I paid him, I think it was
Yeah.
like $750 at the time. And it was just renting
Hmm.
their space so I could train my clients there. And all my clients had a membership at their gym. And I brought a bunch of people and signed up memberships for them. But they had new management came in. And when the new management came in, they wanted to kind of have all employees. And so I'm like, well, I don't know what to do now, because I was 18. I didn't know how to pivot from that. And all the other gyms did the same thing at the time. And I'm like, I'm making good money right now. I'm not going to go backwards and just give them, half of my income. And so I kind of just fell into gutters because of, one of my clients. He's like, well, you can come work with me. So he
Hmm.
became my workout partner. We would work out, every morning before uh, going to work. And I worked for a company for about 5 years. It worked for me because it was kind of like running my own business because I just seen them in the morning for 30 minutes while I'm getting the truck loaded, and I was off on
Yeah.
my own, so I didn't have too much supervision.
Did you
So it's
do
kind of
door to
like,
door, or did they have leads at that point, or how did that work?
yeah, it was right after, I think maybe 6 months after I got a job there. We had a huge hurricane here in
Uh-huh.
Florida,
Gotcha.
and then it just wrecked everything. So then it was just like gung ho, tons of work for years.
Wow.
Um, and we stayed busy up until the Great Recession.
Hmm.
Um, and that's when I split off from that company because it was getting slow, and I was making like $2,000 a week back then for that company.
Right.
Um, and it was getting to be to where like the workload was like half. So I started looking for other places to go. I ended up
Mhm.
working for another company for a little bit. I started a marketing company. It was called Street Team Marketing.
Mhm.
We did full color design, graphic design, full color printing, and then I had a team of like 7 guys who would just distribute flyers all day. They would do it on car windows, door to door. And I did that for like 2 years, and it was all right. It was all right. I was young in business, so I mean, if I
Yeah.
did it nowadays, I could probably capitalize on it better. But then I'm like, I got to get back to what I know really makes money, and so
Mhm.
I ended up getting back into the gutter business. Started my own company. There was a couple of hailstorms at the time. I think it was in Tennessee. It was the first hailstorm I went to,
Mhm.
and I'm down here, and it was like Great Recession. We're struggling to get work. And so I just took off. I went to Tennessee, and I had like $5,000 saved up. I had to spend 800 of it to fix my trailer tires. And then by the
Mhm.
time I got my first check down there, I'm like down to like $200. I'm out of town.
Yeah.
But it was all that insurance work. And, it was just, before you
Slow
know it, like
paying.
in 6 months, I had 3 crews going.
Nice.
And so I did that for a couple of years. I traveled to maybe like 8 different states. I got tired of it, wanted to come home, and ended up coming back to Florida. And I built a company, had it for 10 years, and I sold it last year at the beginning of the year. And that's when I went ahead and started up Gutter Growth
Very
Mastermind.
cool. So when you had your company before and you were basically going where the work was, right? How did you make that transition to make the work permanent at home? You know, what did you have to, I guess, what had to change in your business in order for that to be successful without moving from location to
I
location?
felt like the storm chasing, it's like you do a hailstorm, the whole town's wrecked. But then
Hmm.
you have like hundreds of companies flying in. So you got a good 6 months to a year and another work's going.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, I'm sitting here moving state to state. Yeah, I'm making money, but I'm not building anything,
Hmm.
because once that storm's gone, the work's gone. I mean, I had crews that followed me,
Hmm.
but then you're going to another place, and some states are better than others. Like I went to Texas and lost a ton of money even going there. I don't know why I went there. They, they had guys with like um, pulling up in box trucks with like 8 people coming out the back, and they had like assembly line going on, and I'm doing a job next door with like 2 or 3 guys. We're
Uh-huh.
there all day, and these guys are out in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Texas is competitive in the trades for sure.
yeah. So then, yeah, so I'm just like, I have to build a company, and it's not like I even knew how to do that yet. And I
Yeah.
came back, and I started figuring it out, and it was right around the time when the yellow books didn't work anymore. And I don't really think anyone had it figured out at that point. We're transitioning to Google now and websites, and um, so for the first 2 years, I did like the yellow pages online and
Hmm.
passed out flyers. Um, I think I jumped on
Guerrilla,
home
guerrilla
advisor.
marketing now.
Yeah, yep. And then slowly, I ran into, I think maybe like a year in is when I met John Majak, Mr. Pipeline,
Okay.
and then we started. I was his first gutter company. Now he's got like hundreds of them that he markets for. But
Very cool.
just working with him, we started to learn how to do it, and we kind of perfected it over time.
Well, and when I think about gutters being just like from the consumer side, because I haven't had any clients in the gutter business yet. From the consumer side, it feels like, well, roofers do gutters, right? Or is it that home remodelers or contractors in general do gutters? You know, and so when you think about marketing gutters by themselves, where does that even come in? New home buyers maybe that haven't put the gutters on yet, or the builder didn't put any gutters on? Is that kind of, where is that decision point for your consumers or your clients, or was it before you sold your company?
So a good portion. I mean, I had roofers that I worked with. I had contractors and stuff. They would sub it to me.
Okay,
Um,
so that pays the bills, but the new clients coming in, I guess more margins are probably in there.
yeah, so I didn't focus on it. I would say, looking back, especially in the last years of it,
Hmm.
maybe 10% was that, and the rest of it was all retail.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so I was just going after direct to homeowner. Down here in Florida, I mean, it's different everywhere, but down here in Florida, they don't really build houses with gutters. So pretty much, you got all these new houses going up and they're not being guttered.
Yeah.
Or even houses that are 20 years old just were never guttered. And now they're starting to notice all the foundation issues
Hmm.
or the damage that it causes. So we were doing, at the end there, I was doing about 70 quotes a week for gutters and
Wow.
retail. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what do you think made you attractive to a buyer where you could sell the company? Was it PE or was it a private buyer?
It was a private buyer. It was pretty cool because he actually, the first company I started for that I worked for 5 years, he bought that
Hmm.
company a couple of years prior. So I ended up selling it
Okay.
to the same company I started with. It wasn't the same owner, but it was
Okay.
the same company. Um,
Very cool. So he was just basically gobbling up companies and
yeah, yeah.
growing his market share. Very
Yep.
cool. Awesome. All right. So you sold your company. You completed the process many business owners dream about, right? And what inspired you to start the Gutter Growth Mastermind?
So honestly, I mean, I've liked helping people for some reason. It's just
Hmm.
like in me, and that really comes from my arm because I know the power of like just what making up your mind about something can do.
Hmm.
So I think that's what created that in me to be like helpful. And 4 years prior, I started getting into all these gutter groups online,
Hmm.
and I was just like constantly answering people, just like giving value answers to all the questions, and I ended up
Hmm.
getting pretty well known because of that. It was kind of like the Gary V tactic.
Yeah.
Um, Gary V will tell you to comment like a 90 things a day, which is pretty crazy. But I would say I was commenting on like 20. you
Nice.
know,
Yeah.
so it was easy to roll out because I was already kind of known in the industry
Doing it.
because of that.
Hmm.
And I think if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have been able to roll it out as easy. Um, but yeah, so I'm just like, I got all this knowledge that I've spent 20 years on. How can I give it back? And so we created Gutter Growth.
Beautiful. And so, and I've been a part of a few masterminds now, and I'm still a member of a couple. And so I've seen how they've worked. I've launched some small groups myself and stuff like that. you know um what do you guys do as a cadence? Is it like a weekly call, or is it a Zoom call, or how do y'all kind of work it to where the community feels supported, but it's not like this insane amount of work that you have to overdo?
Okay, so we got several mentors. So it's not
Hmm.
just me. We got me and Grant as the
Hmm.
main coaches, and then we got three other mentors.
Nice.
We got Tina Hart. She's running a gutter company out in the Midwest. It's doing like 4 million a year. Grant's running one in Austin that's doing about 4 million a year.
Nice.
And then another one of our mentors, Corey J, he's got several gutter companies. I think he's like got like 6 or 7 of them now, and he's looking to buy more. He's doing somewhere upward of 13 million a year.
Okay.
And then we got another coach, Chris Dabrowski, and he's like a sales expert. So he runs all our sales breakouts. And
Hmm.
we do a meeting a month, through the different mentors. But we're also really available for our people. Like today I was on 2 calls earlier. I don't charge them for the calls. Like, we're there to
Just be
support
part of
you
the
and
group.
help you. And yeah, we really care and we really want to see them succeed. And we're having a ton of results with a lot of our clients.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's important. I didn't find a mastermind until I was probably like 33. I've been in business for like 10 years already and had
Hmm.
no idea what I was missing, and didn't know that there was all these people out there just like me that I could like go into a group and immediately get access to, you know? So some of my
Yep.
best friends now are from masterminds. Like I paid for my friends and I'd never do it any other way, you know? So it's been
Yeah.
fantastic. So one of the things I've noticed in these groups is the in-person stuff. You know, if it's, you know, you've got the events and stuff like that, which are great, but a lot of times it's the in-person like breakouts, sessions, or the small groups and stuff like that that a lot of the growth happens or the
Mhm.
development happens, I guess you could say. Are you guys doing any of that outside of the event you guys have coming up?
Outside of it,
Mhm. Or did that
what do you
inspire
mean?
the event?
Yeah, I mean, in the event, we're going to have tons of breakouts. I started going to conventions a lot last year. The
Mhm.
first one I went to is the Clippa training.
Yeah.
I got into
Okay.
the Christmas lights last year,
Mhm.
and so that was like my first one, and I had a real successful season. We did like 248,000 the first season for Christmas lights.
Nice. Nice.
So it was really good year, and it had everything to do with going there and getting that education.
Mhm.
And so I must have went to about 8 different events since then. And I don't think that there's a single event that I went to. Some of them are better than others, but there's
Yeah.
not one event that I haven't went to that didn't pay for itself and that I didn't learn a ton of stuff.
So what are you guys going to focus on at your event?
So our event's going to be real educational. We got a VIP package. It's a Gutter Summit, and
Mhm.
in the VIP package, the guys are going to come in the first day, and we're going to do a Spectra tour. Spectra is a distributor for the gutter industry. They're the largest gutter distributor, and so it'll be cool because they could tour the facility and kind of see how everything's made. I was in the gutter industry for 20 years, and I didn't know how everything was made. And like a gutter coil is like 500 pounds, 400 or 500 pounds. But I didn't realize that it came on a master coil that was like 15, 12 to 15,000 pounds, and then they cut it down. So you'll get to see all that at the Spectre tour, the whole process, how they cut the coils down, how they paint it, how they make the downspouts, the elbows, all the accessories. And while we're there, we're going to do a hands-on training. We're teaching guys how to do hand cut miters and a few other things. I would say like 80% of the industry, they're using strip miters or box miters, and they don't have a lot of the technical skills to do the custom work. So in that, we're going to kind of teach them that for the VIP. And then the next 2 days, we get a lot of fire speakers and a lot of breakout rooms. And, we got entry level gutter installation classes. We got advanced, but then you're going to have everything from marketing to sales, and we're even going to have Christmas lights there because it would be a good add-on business for gutter companies to kind of increase your revenue. Um, in that slow time during the winter.
Very cool. Yeah, one of the interesting things was before I got asked to speak at Clipicon, I was talking to Adam McChesney and he told me about
Mm-hmm.
the event or whatever. And it was pretty cool going there and speaking because I want to say like when I was 24 or 25, I decided to start another business and it was a contracting company and we did Christmas light installations. And so like I had actually been on roofs and installed LED and incandescent Christmas lights and
Nice.
priced them and done all that stuff and was learning a lot about the business. But what happened was I had my sales org and then I had the Christmas light installation business. And basically all I did was transfer the gross revenue from my sales org to the Christmas light business. And I didn't really make more money. I just kind of like evened it out across two businesses instead of one, which
Yep.
that's the first time I learned like, hey, where your effort is typically where your income is, you know? And so I realized then I wasn't ready for multiple businesses yet,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. You got to have the support to do that. Like I got a couple businesses going on right now, but I would never be able to do it on my own. Like
Yeah.
now I'm doing
100%.
everything with partners.
Yeah. And I had a great staff back then, but they weren't even like experienced enough to just run the sales org. You know what I mean? And I
Mm-hmm.
had leadership in there and everything, but it didn't matter. Like I was the missing key in the company. So sales went down and I just replaced the the gross revenue with the gutter business. Then the next year, or gutter business, the Christmas light business, and then the next year I didn't do it, and I had a record December, in the sales org. So it was just a testament to kind of focusing on the one thing, right? And then as you grow and as you get better at business, you're going to be able to handle more businesses. But I was like 25, so
Yeah, man.
I was still learning. Very cool. So you guys got Gutter Summit coming up. Just so the listeners know, if they want to get a ticket to that, they go to guttersummit.com and they use your code GROW and they'll get 10% off.
Yep, 10% off with the code GROW.
Okay.
This is great if you're in the gutter industry. It's going to sharpen up. You're going to learn a ton. But it's also great if you're in the roofing industry and you want to kind of branch out into gutters, which a lot of roofers do. Like right now, a lot of roofers are just subbing out that work. But, they could be doing it in-house. And we're going to have some entry-level stuff where you could kind of learn installation. Yeah. Also, the Christmas light guys, they struggle because they have a short season and then they lose all their employees.
Yeah.
So you could plug in, get a gutter installation business started, have year-round work. It kind of slows down in the winter for gutters anyways, for a lot of people. So you could kind of transition and fill in that spot with reoccurring revenue, that's what I love about the Christmas light business is it's reoccurring. But yeah, no. So I mean, it's good for anybody. I mean, and if you're like a pressure washing guy and you want to kind of upgrade to a better business that makes a little bit more money, gutters is definitely it. So if you're not in the industry and you want to be, this is definitely the place to come.
Yeah, brother. And that's going to be in October. Is that correct? I was showing
October 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Beautiful. In Atlanta, Georgia there. I actually have someone that needs to go to that. His name is Nick Staton. Have you met him yet?
Potentially.
Yeah. He's in the pressure washing business. He just got Clippa certified to do Christmas lights. And because he was having a lot of Christmas light companies send to him their pressure washing work during the off season because they couldn't do it because they were busy with Christmas lights,
Yeah.
And so he was like, well, what's this Christmas light thing? Like, I need to start doing that, And so, but yeah, he does pressure washing. He's a client of mine. And I'll definitely shoot this over to him and let him know about it. What's your desired outcome for the event?
We just want to make an impact. We're trying to. There's not really been too much in the gutter industry, like the roofing industry, and a lot of these other industries are way ahead of us. They have conventions, they have trainings, and there's just really there was no masterminds before we started it. So we're just kind of trying to pave the way and just make a massive impact.
Beautiful. All right, last question. It's 2 parts. What does legacy mean to you, and what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Say that again.
What does legacy mean to you, and what legacy do you want to leave behind?
I mean, legacy. I mean, I haven't really thought about it too much, but I know that when I die, I don't even care about people knowing me, nothing like that.
Okay.
I just care about the impact that I make. No one has to know about it. But as long as I leave here making a difference in individuals' lives, I mean, even if you make a difference in one person's life, I just want to make a difference in as many people's lives as possible.
I love it. Yeah, I've got a lot of different answers on that, right? And then I saw a visual the other day, which was the ripple effect that happens when a stone hits the water. And that, and it made me think about it a little further, like, the ripple effect we have in other people's lives, like somebody 3 generations from now may be impacted by this podcast you recorded today, and because of a decision somebody made to get into the gutter industry or to go to Gutter Summit, and it's so cool to think about that, but also like a ripple itself. When you think about like sound waves, energy in general, it's infinite and it never really stops. It may get smaller and smaller and smaller. We can't feel it or see it or anymore, but it's still there.
You can impact someone and they change the way they teach their kids something, and now their kids are impacting someone, and it just keeps going.
Yeah, exactly. But it would be so cool if we got to heaven and God was able to show us that ripple.
You get to see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope he does.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be awesome. But that's, it's a little bit of our ego. That's a little bit of our human ego there. So
Yeah.
that's part of it. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on the show. If people want to follow you and pick up some of that value that you're putting down on social media, where can they do that at?
You can follow me on my Facebook page, Tim Crouch. I'm
Okay.
also admin on like 6 or 7 gutter groups. So if you just look up gutter groups, there's a good chance that I'm an admin on it. We got the main group, Gutter Growth, hosted by Grant and Tim. I also have the Seamless Gutter page, um, Gutter and Marketing.
Hmm.
Um, there's several of them. So there's a good chance I'm an admin on most of them.
Yeah, and we saw your YouTube too as well, and that is at Gutter Growth.
Yep,
Wow.
Gutter Growth podcast. We do 2 lives a week. A
Mhm.
ton of content on there, so you could hop on there, get to know us, and uh, tons of information. I mean, if you just jump on the podcast, you're going to learn a lot.
Awesome. Fantastic, brother. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Appreciate you having me.
All right, y'all. Let's get building.